Today we are supposed to talk to Mr. Edgar Allan Poe, but unfortunately he could not be here today. So instead we are going to talk to one of his best characters, Hop Frog. We are going to hide his identity because he's a wanted criminal. So Hop Frog, I hear you have helped Mr. Poe create one of his greatest works. Tell us what your life story is.
Well, I was born a dwarf people in a country a long ways away. I hung out with my village until a foreign king's army took me as a war prize to their king, where I was kept like a slave and made to be their jester. The king was a tyrant and everybody hated him. I befriended one other captured slave, Rebecca, and that was all I had in the castle.
How horrible.
Indeed, it was. It only got worse until me and Rebecca had enough, and that's when we started plotting our revenge against the king. We were going to wait until he did something truly terrible, and we were also waiting for a time when he had many of his gold with him, so the revenge would be even greater.
When did this time arise?
It arose very shortly at the ball. Me and Rebecca were in a room with all of them, when the king threatened my life into Rebecca's, and that is when I told him I had something special planned for the ball that night, and that I would need their help to scare the guests.
What did you do?
I told them I was going to dress them as orangutans and lead them to where my final jest was to be. I covered them in flags and tar and chained them together with a chain to keep them together. And then I led them out into the ballroom where all the guests were. The king and his advisors were causing a ruckus, scaring everyone, while I wrapped their chain around the lower chandelier, which was being manned by Rebecca, and had her hoist them up. After they were high up, I set every single one of them on fire and let them burn. When they were burned to the crisp, I ran away with Rebecca.
Oh, well, that's definitely different. Anyways, so then you went to Poe to get your story out.
Yes, I went to him and he agreed to do my story.
What made Poe agree to write your story? He usually doesn't agree to do stuff like that.
Now see, Poe was used to getting told by people that his work were not any good and that he was a horrible critic. Plus his wife got some of that negative feedback directed towards her too. So when he heard the story from me and Rebecca, he saw not unlike him having to deal with all the people shoving him down.
Wow, so he saw a lot of himself and his wife in you and Geppetta?
Yes, he also said that the story had enough mystery and dark themes in it to keep him interested while he wrote it.
Well, that is Poe for you. Anyways, though I think we can all guess what the theme of the story is, could you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yes, the main theme of the story is revenge. When the king hurt me and Rebecca, we hurt him back.
So in this story, did Poe talk about any symbolization he used from your life story?
Yes, he said he used two important symbols in the story. He said one of the two main symbols was the gold chain I bound around the king and his court, saying that when I bound them, I was freeing myself. He said fire was another symbol he used, saying that fire represents punishment for the king.
I see. Mr. Edgar Allan Poe really went in deep to help your life story come out to life.
Yes, indeed he did.
Were there any parts of the story that you enjoyed the most?
Indeed. Would you mind if I read them to everyone?
Of course not. Go ahead.
It is the part where I led the king and his advisors into the ballroom, where the partiers had just recovered from the fright of the king being orangutans. "Leave him to me now," screamed Hop Frog, his shrill voice making it easily heard above the din. "Leave them to me. I fancy I know him. If only I can get a good look at them, I can soon tell you who they are." He is scrambling over the head of the crowd. He managed to get the wall then, seizing a flambeau from one of the caryatides. He returned, and as he went, to the center of the room, leaping with the agility of a monkey upon the king's head, and thence clambered a few feet up the chain. Holding down the torch to examine the group of orangutans and still screaming, "I shall find out who they are." And now, while the whole assembly, the apes included, were convulsing with laughter, the jester suddenly uttered a shrill whistle when the chain flew violently up for about 30 feet, dragging with it the dismayed and struggling orangutans, and leaving them suspended in mid-air between the skylight and the floor. Hop Frog, clinging to the chain as it rose, still maintained his relative position in respect to the 8 maskers, and still, as if nothing were the matter, continued to thrust his torch down on them. as though endeavoring to discover who they were. So thoroughly astonished was the whole company at this ascent that a dead silence of about a minute duration ensued. It was broken by such a low, harsh, grating sound as had been attracted the attention of the king and his counselors when the former threw the wine in the face of Rebecca. But on the occasion, there was no question of words that founded muse. It came from the fang-like teeth of the dwarf, who ground them and gnashed them as he foamed at the mouth and glared with an expression of maniacal rage into the upturned countenances of the king and his 7 companions. "Aha!" said at length the infuriated jester. "Aha! I begin to see who these people are now." Here, pretending to scrutinize the king more closely, he held up the flambeau to the flaxen coat which enveloped him, and which instantly burst into a sheet of vivid flame. In less than half a minute, the whole 8 orangutans were blazing fiercely, amid the shrieks of the multitude who gazed down at them from below, horror-stricken, and without the power to render them the slightest assistance. At length the flames, suddenly increasing in virulence, forced the jester to climb higher up the chain, just to be out of reach, and as he made this movement, the crowd again sank for a brief instant into silence. The dwarf seized this opportunity and once more spoke. "I now see distinctly," he says, "what manner of people these maskers are. They are a great king and his 7 privy councillors, a king who does not scruple to strike a defenseless girl and his 7 councillors who abet them in the outrage. As for myself, I am simply Hopfrog, the jester, and this is my last jest." Owing to the high combustibility of both the flax and the tar to which it adhered, the dwarf had scarcely made an end to his brief speech before the work of vengeance was complete. The 8 corpses swung in their chains, a fetid, black and hideous and indistinguishable mass. The cripple hurled his torch at them, clambered leisurely to the ceiling, and disappeared through the skylight. It is supposed that Rebecca, stationed on the roofs of the salon, had been the accomplished of her friend in the fiery revenge, and that together they effected escape to their own country, for neither was seen again.
Wow, that was dark.
I know, right? I also have a video of the burning of the court. Would you like to see it?
Sure, why not?
I now see distinctly what manner of these people these maskers are. They are a great king and his 7 privy councillors, a king who does not scruple to strike a defenseless girl and his 7 councillors who abet them in the outrage. As for myself, I am simply Hopfrog, the jester, and this is my last jest.
Well, that was, it was interesting. Thank you very much, Hopfrog. We're going to take a commercial break now, but don't go anywhere, because after the break we're going to talk about Charles Le Bronte's book, Jane Eyre. Thank you, Hopfrog. You may go now.
Thank you.